Good morning and welcome to the 7th video in this series on the prophecies of St. John. This video will address the New Jerusalem prophecy that we found in Revelations 21. Before we proceed, we need to ask, who or what is the New Jerusalem prophesied in Revelations 21? Exactly what are we confronted with in this prophecy? Just by reading the prophecy, it is evident that it is complex. It is also one of the very few prophecies of St. John that straddles so many verses. There is also an undercurrent to the text, hinting that the New Jerusalem prophecies had stretched St. John's belief system and his knowledge to the limits of its metaphoric abilities. For this reason, it was important to identify and first extrapolate the cardinal facts. When reading Revelations 21, it shall be noted that the cardinal facts were embedded in 4 verses, being verse 2, verse 10, verse 16, and verse 17. Verse 2 reads as follows: And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Revelations 21 verse 10. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and shewed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. Revelations 21:16. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and the height of it are equal. And then finally verse 17. And he measured the wall thereof, 144 cubits, according to the measure of man, that is, of the angel. With these enigmatic facts at our disposal, let us now proceed to investigate the prophecy. Reading Revelations 21 verse 2, we shall see that it confirmed a 3-dimensional, intelligently controlled maneuver. Should we visualize the prophecy, we can see that there is a clear X, Y, and Z axis component to it, for St. John described an intelligence-driven airborne navigational maneuver. Similarly, Revelations 21 verse 12 confirmed 12 gates, 3 to a side, and each cluster of 3 gates being guarded. Interestingly enough, St. John correlated the 12 gates to the 12 tribes of Israel, the reason therefore at this stage not yet being evident. At this juncture, there was an interesting observation on the part of St. John, for he confirmed that the New Jerusalem was still in the sky above him. Revelations 21:14 underscored the enigma, for St. John confirmed he could see 12 foundations to the New Jerusalem. Now at this juncture, we must remember St. John lived 2,000 years ago. His technical vocabulary was much more restricted than ours today. Yet, he was confronted with technologies of the 20th and 21st century. So he did the next best thing. He compared what he had seen to what was familiar to him. It is for modern man to interpret what he meant with the reference foundations. However, his reference to foundations also confirmed that the New Jerusalem was still above him, for by confirming that he could see the foundations, he also inadvertently confirmed that he could see the bottom structure of the New Jerusalem. We can only speculate how St. John identified the foundations. How did he know this fact? He was supposed to be ignorant of aviation and flight. Did his modern host, the pilot, advise him? Today, 2,000 years after this prophecy was recorded, we can only speculate. The facts recorded in Revelations 21 verse 16 was also of interest. St. John confirmed with the reference, the city lieth foursquare, that the New Jerusalem was orientated exactly along the true north to south and true east to west cardinal compass bearings. At first glance, there is nothing untoward towards the statement. However, if we step back and view the proverbial big picture, there are in actual fact a number of enigmas embedded in this observation. According to Western maritime history, the magnetic compass at this time was still unknown. The gyroscopic compass and its latest derivatives thereof, ring laser gyros and the more modern versions, was another 2,000 years in the future. Yet St. John had no trouble to confirm that the New Jerusalem was orientated exactly along the true cardinal compass point. We now know that according to our history, he could not correlate this fact with a compass. This reference is a further confirmation, one of many embedded in the Revelations prophecies, that confirmed that St. John was brought forward to our time to observe these events firsthand. As strange as the statement may sound, there was no other logical and reasonable explanation for St. John's observations. We also know from the Revelations prophecies that St. John did not record a fact unless it served a purpose. We must thus ask ourselves, what was the significance to the cardinal orientation of the New Jerusalem? Was it purely a nice navigational maneuver? Unlikely. For then St. John, I doubt, would have recorded the fact. While I'm entering into speculation now, it is my belief that somehow the orientation of the vessel is related to the gravitational pull of the Earth's magnetic lines, and therefore it aligns itself along the true cardinal point. We can also ask ourselves, is the reference an embedded time indicator? Was his observation of the New Jerusalem at the exact celestial noontime, also known in the nautical navigational sciences as merpass, the time of day when the noon sun reaches its zenith in the sky before starting to sink slowly towards the western horizon? But St. John was not yet finished with his surprises. He next embedded the mathematical formula for volume and circumference. Observe in Revelation 21 verse 16. The length is as large as the breadth. And the second formula, the length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. What's the purpose of these statements? While it allows us to calculate the dimensions of New Jerusalem, I believe it also serves another purpose. St. John is hinting to us across the ages, if not downright telling us, that this vessel is of a highly sophisticated nature. When he next entered into apparent trivial comment on wall construction, we see he states 144 cubits according to the measure of man. In the preceding verses and text, he had used the archaic nautical reference for measurement of distance, the furlong. He now switches to the cubit. What did St. John actually record? Why these apparently enigmatic facts? Let's look at the facts alone and summarize them. He used the archaic nautical reference furlong. It is no longer in general use in the nautical sciences, but I believe by using furlong, St. John confirmed that the New Jerusalem was both ship-like and underway. By using the reference cubit, which was an ancient building measurement, he confirmed that the New Jerusalem was a constructed object. 1, and 2, that it now landed. At this point, it had settled on the earth, and it was now as if it was a building. He confirmed the navigational sciences with the reference lies foursquare, i.e. it is true north and south and east and west orientated. He confirms the mathematical volume formula for volume. Similarly, he confirms the mathematical volume for circumference. It is speculation on my part, but it's not unlikely that the formula to volume and circumference was the foundation knowledge to understanding the propulsion technology to the New Jerusalem. Should we now summarize St. John facts, the following was confirmed. New Jerusalem shall be a constructed object. It shall be ship-like in role and function. It shall demand knowledge of the sciences, navigation and mathematics. It was and shall be of extraterrestrial origins. These facts then confirm a second series of facts. We are not the only divine created beings in the universe. There is other intelligent life out there, and they are far more intelligent than what we consider ourselves to be. And we are not the only divine worshippers in the universe. There are other nations, peoples, species, whatever you want to call them, biological entities. There are others that worship the same divine that we worship. Should we now proceed to Revelations 21, verse 24 and 26, we are confronted with a confirmation of an act of subjugation. Observe that St. John makes two important statements. Access to the New Jerusalem shall be rigidly controlled. This simply implies the inhabitants of New Jerusalem shall determine who enter and who stays outside, and it shall only be a select few that shall enter. And he then next confirmed, the kings of the earth shall come to pay their respects. This is a custom that stretches back to the early days of man, and is still practiced today in various more diplomatic forms. It simply implies when a weaker nation acknowledges a stronger nation, it will tend to seek protection through agreements. And that's exactly what St. John is prophesying. Man shall acknowledge his inferiority before these extraterrestrial people. Hence, only the national rulers of the earth paying homage and respect. They will do it on behalf of all of us. We can now extrapolate the prophecy. Man's unrestrained use of nuclear, biological and chemical weapons during the Third World War shall set the celestial alarm bells ringing across the universe. The New Jerusalem, an extraterrestrial vessel, shall be tasked to respond and to come and admonish man, but not only admonish, also to assist him to clean up the earth from the contaminants that now pollute our planet. With these facts in our back pocket, it now allows us to proceed to the second part to the New Jerusalem prophecy. When the second part to the New Jerusalem prophecy was considered and evaluated, we shall see that it concerned the 12 apostles. Revelations 21 verse 19 and Revelations 21 verse 20 equate the 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem to 12 precious stones. What did St. John actually record with this statement? He says, just as the 12 landing gears was the foundations to the New Jerusalem, so the 12 apostles were the foundations to the new Christian church. Just as the 12 landing gears were equated to 12 precious stones, so each precious stone was equated to one of the 12 apostles. But each precious stone, by its color, also told us something of the personality of the individual apostle. Should we now consult Luke 6 verse 14 to 16, we shall see the manner in which St. John had achieved this objective. He links each precious stone to an apostle, and if we then link that apostle to the primary color of that stone, we then start getting our bigger picture being built. The first step is we see three primary color groupings starting to emerge. And ironically enough, of the three primary colors, there's an exact division of to 4 apostles each. We could now summarize the New Jerusalem prophecies as follows. Prophecy 1 states, man's unrestrained use of nuclear, biological and chemical weapons during World War III shall set the alarm bells ringing across the universe. New Jerusalem, an extraterrestrial vessel, shall after the war come to admonish man and assist to clean the planet from the contaminants that now poison it. Second part of the prophecy, the 12 apostles were not a random selection. They were, in terms of personality, balanced. In this manner, they could render support to each other. We now see that Jesus had selected each of the apostles to fulfill a specific role and function. This brings us to the end of the New Jerusalem prophecy. To state that the content, surprised, would be rather an understatement. As I warned in an earlier video, My belief system was time and time again stretched beyond its elastic limits. In the process, I came to realize and I came to learn that the God that I worship was far greater and more wonderful than I ever realized. Sadly, I also came to realize that the mainstream churches had become so swamped in a quagmire of their own dogma that sadly many no longer could discern the wood from the trees. As a result, our faith suffered. I thank you for watching the video on St. John's New Jerusalem prophecy. Trust me, it was a revelation for me too. May the Lord God bless you, may the Son redeem you, and the Holy Ghost comfort you all the days of your life. Amen.